Hey there, friends. So, as you can see, I'm slowly getting more settled into my new space here, which is feeling really good. Um, I do think that there's a quality sometimes of when we go through a growth spurt in our lives, our environment also needs to shift in some way, or at least that's something that I've noticed in my own development process. One of my mentors talks about when we do really deep inner work, it's kind of like we take the spoon and we start to transform the spoon. We do really deep inner work and it transforms the spoon in some way. And then you bring that spoon back to your utensil holder, and it doesn't quite fit in the utensil holder. So then the utensil holder has to get a bit bigger and reshape itself. And then you try to put the utensil holder back in the drawer, and it doesn't quite fit in the drawer. So then you have to make the drawer a little bit bigger, or you have to transform that. And then the drawer doesn't fit in the kitchen. And so the kitchen needs to shift and on and on and on. And the point being that as we transform more of the foundational elements that we were given when we come into this life, as we start to shift those pieces that we built our sense of self in and our relationships in and our careers in, as those really foundational pieces start to heal and transform, all the things that are built on top of them have to shift as well. So those really deep transformative pieces in us start to sort of create, it radiates out into all the different areas of our life. So there's a little bit of that that's happening in my world because I'm also continuing on my growth process and practice and stepping into new layers of my work and my leadership and the learning that comes along with that and being stretched. So, yeah, I also wanted to touch base and let you all know that I have a couple of openings that are starting to come, that'll be coming up in the next month for my one-on-one work with people. I call this my integral awakening process, and it's a 6 month process. We generally meet once a week. It's mostly for people that have already done a significant amount of work on themselves, though that's not always the case. Sometimes people are really ripe for a certain kind of transformative work. But often it's for people that have a little bit more experience with self-work, a little bit more experience with their own spiritual development. Because this particular type of work tends to show up when somebody's done as much as they can do on their own, and now they really need somebody that can help them begin to open up the next doorways, the next pieces, particularly in the Western cultures. There's sort of a quality where we feel like we have to do all of it on our own. And this shows up in spiritually oriented people where they have a very sort of solo spiritual practice and process, and they feel like other people don't get them. They don't necessarily feel safe with the current contexts and current relationships. So they're holding a lot on their own. And there's only so much growth or transformation with the really foundational parts of ourselves that we can do on our own, because a lot of those pieces are young. They're very young aspects of ourselves, or these injuries happened when we were really young, or even when we first were sort of incarnating into this particular reality. And those young pieces don't they can't actually survive just on their own. They're inherently relational. They have to be held by a mother or a father or a loving relational nervous system context. And so some people have done a lot of work on themselves, and just as they're ready to begin to bloom into something even further or an even higher aspect of themselves, that always comes with needing to do work with the deep, rooty, foundational parts, right? I think it was Carl Jung that says, if you wish to grow your branches to heaven, you must grow your roots to hell. And the idea of that is that we need to actually go into these really deep foundational pieces that tend to be our own sort of developmental elements and also our ancestral elements, so the trauma or the pain, as well as the resiliency that comes from our ancestry. And then it also tends to touch into some of our collective pieces. And in order for that blooming to happen, we need to work with those really foundational pieces. And often those foundational pieces aren't something that you can do just on your own. There needs to be a healing relational space, a place where you feel safe enough to be held and to do some of that transformation with someone else. So often the people that show up have sort of done some work on themselves and they're ready for a new nutrient that can't necessarily be provided by them doing it on their own or them doing it with a traditional therapist who maybe has ideas about developmental process but maybe isn't fully embodying it. Or maybe they have ideas about transpersonal or spiritual concepts, but they're not necessarily living it in themselves. So, anyways, I just wanted to say a few words about that, that there are a couple spaces that are starting to open up. And if you're feeling called or invited, I really trust that people feel the spark when it's time. And you're more than welcome to reach out. I'll put a little link down below. So, what else? Yeah, the weekly energy update readings will start again this coming week, and there will be another monthly forecast reading starting for June. Um, the last piece is that I do have this foundations workshop that I was really excited about and that I've been putting lots of energy and tension in. And it's really intended for people that maybe have started some self-work, but they're wanting to deepen it. They want to really commit to a new level of self-transformation. And this can be people that are brand new. It's really built for people that are either brand new or that are further along and want to refine their own self-work. The tricky thing is I have a very busy year ahead with travel and other trainings and obligations. And so I had a perfect time slot and then an unexpected move needed to happen, which has sort of thrown things off. So I'm going to look into that today and see if there's possibility to fit it in somewhere else this year, because I'd really love to share that with you all. So it's good to tune in. I'm happy to be landing, and I look forward to connecting soon. Take good care.